MLB Pipeline put out their new top 100, and the Yankees have 5 players in the top 100. Stacey Gotsulias from Locked On Yankees invited me on to talk about it and discuss where the guys were and who deserved to be on there and who didn't. And spoiler alert, I don't think Jasson Dominguez should be on there. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey y'all, this is Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees, and I'm joined by Lindsey Crosby of Locked On MLB Prospects. And guess what we'll be talking about today? Yankees prospects, which is a new thing for my show because I don't really do that. So I'm happy to have you crossing over with me tonight, Lindsey.
Absolutely. We're also talking about the fact I dared her to say, hey y'all, and it came out somewhat like normal. It was kind of cool. I like that. Hey y'all is a good look on you, Stacey.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
So, Locked On Yankee fans, we have some guys in the top 100, and Lindsey is here to talk about those guys, and that's what the show is going to be about. It's going to be about different guys that you know of, maybe some guys that you don't quite know of, because, you know, there are Yankee fans that don't always pay attention to all of the prospects. You just know the same names that you always hear. Volpe is the one that you always hear, and he's the one that they're all worried about. But yeah, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff on this show.
Yeah.
So
there is a guy or two outside that top 5 that I have in here. I also have some issues with one or two of these selections, and we'll talk about that. And I've got a little bit of draft stuff towards the end too. But like you said, the big thing everybody talks about, Anthony Volpe, top 10 prospect in baseball right now, number 8 overall. And he's having a good year at AA in Somerset. Not exactly like the numbers don't scream like amazing top 10 prospect in baseball, but it's the way he's doing it. So he's batting 246, 343, 441, 11 home runs, 35 stolen bases. I will remind everybody, like minor leagues still have some of the restrictions on what the pitchers can do. So stolen base numbers are a little bit inflated in AA. Not entirely, but a little bit. He'll get double digits in MLB. He won't steal 35 bases in the bigs, but he'll get double digits, no problem. The thing is the way that he's doing it. So at the plate, it doesn't matter if he's facing somebody with premium velocity, somebody that has high spin, they're changing speeds a bunch. He still has high quality at-bats in every one of those situations. Really good exit velos. Both his average exit velo and his max exit velo were kind of towards the tops in AA. And so having seen him now for about 70 games in AA, you know, in the high minors, I think we can kind of safely say that he kind of projects to be a 280 hitter with like 25 or 30 home runs. Like that's the kind of guy and that's why he's a top 10 prospect, right? Like that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Not a perfect prospect. Nobody is. There's things you can quibble with there. And I honestly am curious whether or not he'll get a chance to stick it short. I think he could play short. His range is not the greatest. His arm is kind of average. And so I think he may, either because of a free agent or just because of the next guy on the list, I think he may eventually need to move to second base, or he will move to second base, whether or not he needs to kind of accommodate a free agent that gets signed, you know, maybe one of the big shortstops that's on the market next year. Or if Peraza gets promoted before him and Peraza's playing short, I don't think they'll make Peraza move when Volpe comes up.
Right. Yeah. And I know he started off rough in the beginning of the year, and people were, you know, Yankee fans overreact to everything, and they were overreacting to that. But
he did have like a 2-week stretch where he could not hit a slider.
Right.
Like it was an automatic out. You just throw him a slider, he's going to swing him. And he, to his credit, he adjusted. And like from that point on, he's been on an absolute tear. And we like watching prospects, we expect them to struggle, right?
Sure.
We know they're going to have issues. The question is always, can they self-correct? Can they figure out what to do, and how long does it take to do it? And he corrected rather quickly, and has produced really well since then. And so the numbers are maybe a little bit less indicative of what he actually is, but the fact that he was able to diagnose it and correct it so quickly is a good thing. Oswald Peraza is a guy, right behind him, number 39 on the top 100 from MLB Pipeline. Another guy that has about 65 games now in AAA, 242, 313, 411, 10 home runs, 18 stolen bases. He had always kind of been seen by the prospect folks, the prospect apparatus, as I call it, as a like a defense first guy, and the offense, it would be nice if it hit a ton of ground balls, hit quality contact just on the ground. He's fixed that. He's moved his ground ball rate from like worst in the entire system to average. But because of that, now he's unlocked a lot more of the power potential, because you hit a ball really hard, but it's on the ground. It's almost impossible to get a home run. That's just kind of how that works.
Right.
But the way that he's improved his barrel rate, things like that, he profiles as like a 270 hitter, 20, 25 home runs, not as many home runs or average as Volpe, but probably plays a little bit better defense. Not like a super twitchy athlete, not like Fernando Tatis, not like that super, super twitchy guy,
Right.
but just really good instincts, really good speed, really good arm to make all the plays he has to make it short. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with his defense at short. The only real negative I have on him is that thing that he's not a super twitchy athlete, and he can still struggle sometimes when he faces the elite level spin. Like there are guys who have really good sliders, really good curveballs, that kind of thing. But other than that, I like Oswald Peraza, and I honestly think the best way to set this up is to put him at short and put Volpe at second. That's your double team tandem for the next decade. They're going to contend for all-star games together.
See, Yankee fans? I just find it funny because, people, the Yankees are the best team in baseball. There's no doubt about that right now. Mm-hmm. And it's just funny that their farm system is pretty good considering how good the big team is doing. Because in a lot of times when the Yankees are doing really well, the farm system's kind of, and they don't have that many top prospects. And this feels like a good thing.
It is a good thing. And it's a thing that not everybody gets the opportunity to have at the same time.
Right.
It's and like you said, it's very common where the farm system is good first. That makes the big league team good. And when all the talent's migrated, the farm system's bad while the big league team is good.
Yeah.
Example of that, the Braves right now. The Braves have a not very good farm system, not a lot of talent in there. Big league team's doing great. Won the World Series last year. Obviously doing well.
Yeah.
But a couple other guys on this list. Jasson Dominguez. I've been saying Jasson for like a month, and somebody corrected me from Friday show. I did a Friday show all about this farm system, top to bottom, every affiliate and everything. And somebody commented, "Hey, is it Jasson or Jason?"
It's Jason.
It's Jason.
Giambi.
Yeah.
They just added an S. Yeah.
I went to look it up, and so yeah. I'm going to talk about him in the next segment because I want to have a deeper dive on Jasson Dominguez. Austin Wells is number 73. Catcher has a fantastic mustache. It is very good. It's not Spencer Strider levels of good, but it's a very good mustache. And kind of interesting here is offensively. Okay, started out in high A, went on an absolute tear. 323, 429, 576. 6 home runs in 28 games. OPS of over 1,000. Not bad. Missed a month because of injury. And when he came back, they went ahead and promoted him to Double-A Somerset. And what I like is he's got less strikeouts than games played. 27 strikeouts, 28 games played. And this says as of Sunday morning. So Just clarification on the dates there. That may have changed.
Yeah.
But so I love that. Offensively, really good. Excited what I see. The question for me is, does he actually stick at catcher or not? Its speed is fringy to average, but defensively, he's got his arm is significantly below average. I think he has 98 steals against, so it's like an 87% success rate.
Wow.
A typical success rate hovers around 75% or so is considered, if you're a good catcher, if you can throw out 1 and 4.
Right.
He's throwing out, he 13%. It's not great.
Right.
And then the blocking ability is not quite there yet. So he had 16 pass balls last year in 70 games. Kind of working on that. I think that he could be a guy that ends up moving to first or left.
Okay. I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Like which position? Yeah.
It's something where defensively, I mean, first base obviously isn't that difficult. You can get away with a below average athlete. His speed's decent enough to play left. Again,
Jasson Giambi. Hello.
Jasson Giambi.
No offense.
Yeah. The arm isn't good enough to play right, but you can put him in left. And I think he's fast enough to go out there and be fine. He's not going to hurt you. He's not going to play Gold Glove defense, but he's not going to hurt you in the outfield. Or, again, first base, having the DH obviously helps. You can find a way to get his bat in the lineup, even if you're not necessarily playing him every day. But I'm a proponent of, if you have a young player, especially a catcher, don't call them up and just have them DH 2 or 3 times a week. Like, if you call them up, they need to be playing often. So, and I think maybe this year, you've got Higgy back there. You've got some other folks. I don't necessarily know if you need a catcher right this second. Let him play in the minors every day. See if he can get better. And if not, this is a note for the second segment. You've got a lot of catching options in the minors right now and some decisions to make in the offseason about it.
Right. Speaking of the second segment, before we get to the second segment, which we will be talking about more guys that you need to know about, it's time to talk about Built Bar, which is my favorite time of the show, as people who watch Locked On Yankees know. And if you watch Locked On MLB Prospects, just watch my show one time and see how excited I am about Built Bar, because the people who invented healthy and tasty, they have a new gift for your taste buds. You've probably tried the coconut brownie chunk Built Bar, but guess what? There's a puff. I'm so excited about this. It's a marshmallow, it's covered in 100% chocolate, and it's a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. Coconut brownie chunk puffs are only here for a limited time, so you have to go to Built.com now. Make sure you don't miss out. They're going to go fast because they really do taste amazing. All Built Bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So eat something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Bars, of course, is they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they're actually good for you. They're the perfect treat, perfect when you have a craving, to satisfy your sweet tooth, or if you just need a quick, healthy snack. I usually eat them before I work out. So go to Built.com, use our promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thank you for making Locked On Yankees and Locked On MLB Prospects your first listens of the day. So who's up next?
My favorite pitcher in this system, Ken Waldichuk, lefty, number 74 on that MLB Pipeline Top 100, made the futures game. Volpe made the futures game. Dominguez made the futures game. And then Waldichuk made the futures game. But really funky kind of lefty. And he's a guy, I noticed this from a lot of pitchers in this system. The Yankees have specifically been teaching guys the horizontally sweeping slider, the big slider that goes from one side of the strike zone to the other. And his is really good. So I enjoy, like that's something new that he's added. I like that. He can hit decent velocity for a lefty. I mean, he's not throwing 100 or anything, but if you're a lefty that can, he sits 94, 95, he can touch 98 with it for a lefty. That's really good. And then to go along with it, he has the deception. He's really tall. So he's got those long levers, and it's hard to pick up where the ball comes out. He's improved the command a bit. That was our big question going into this year, is command-wise, what was he going to do? Because he had such long levers, it was sometimes hard to be synced up, and his upper half and his lower half would kind of get out of sync, and he had command issues because of that. But he's fixed that a bit. The changeup looks like it's a decent third pitch, and so I think because the changeup is coming around, and you can see it in the stats. I mean, 8 games in AAA this year, 2.52 ERA, 39 innings, 55 strikeouts, 17 walks. You can see there's still a little bit of command issues, 17 walks and 39 innings. But for the most part, he's improved a lot. I think he's a guy, fastball's there. You've got a great slider. Those two things, he could play out of the bullpen if you needed some help for the stretch run. And then he could, as soon as next year, be competing in spring training for a rotation spot. I really like what he's doing. I think that the curveball isn't that much different from the slider. When you watch film, I watched some film today. When you watch film, it kind of looks like the curveball is just a worse version of the slider. So maybe work on that a bit. Having that fourth pitch would be great, but Other than that, really like Ken Waldichuk, like what he does, and I think he can contribute next year or even this year out of the bullpen if you need him.
Yeah, yeah. We were talking before we started recording about what the Yankees could possibly need, and that would be good to have extra people coming out of the bullpen down the stretch.
And talking about a guy that could probably make stuff work down the stretch. Not my first pick to put him in this role, but a guy that can finally do it. Luis Medina. He's not in that top 5, but just somebody I've watched recently. I think he's kind of coming around. The story on Medina has always been the stuff was electric, but he's kind of struggled with his command, right? So this year, 15 games in Double-A, 2-3, 3.67 ERA, which doesn't scream amazing off its head. 61 innings, 73 strikeouts to 37 walks. But here's what I like. Exact same ERA and the exact same number of games as last year, but he's only given up 4 home runs. His walks are down. His home runs are down. And his whip went down from 1.44 to 1.22. So the outcome is the exact same, but everything involved in it is better. All the steps to get there are better. He's throwing about 60% strikes this year, which is an improvement. And that was kind of the big issue was the command, trying to figure out what he was doing. The fastball can hit 103. That's useful. Last I checked, that's useful. And that's crazy. You combine that with the curveball, one of those really hammer curveballs. And right there, that's something that you can use in the bullpen in the stretch run if you need to.
Yeah.
Just those two things. And then he's got a changeup. It doesn't have enough separation velocity wise from the fastball because the fastball sits 97, 98 and the changeup's about 90. You want ideally 10 mile an hour difference.
Right.
But he's got about 8, but he believes in it. He throws it with conviction and it disguises really well off of the arm. So the arm speed's the exact same and it has a weird kind of splitter movement. So it's decent, and he's had a good stretch since May 21st. I think what was the stat here I had? Yeah, 2 or less runs in every start except 1. He averaged 5 innings and 6 strikeouts in each outing. So his June was 5 starts, 2.02 ERA, 34 strikeouts to 7 walks, only 6 total earned runs. I mean, absolutely a guy that can be useful out of the bullpen with just the fastball curveball combo. Never mind with the change. If you need him in the stretch run. And then again, I think he's gotten enough command around those secondaries where, again, can compete for a job in spring training next year. Obviously, you've got plenty of pitchers, but you need usually on average 8 or 9 different guys to start in a regular season. So I think he's somebody that can really help. And he's turned it around finally because it's been so long we've been waiting for him to figure it out. He finally did, I think.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to hear about a pitcher who can throw above 100, but then also have a curveball that's in the low 80s, because that's a big difference going from seeing a 103 mile an hour fastball to seeing a curveball at 83.
And a lot of guys really struggle with that. That's what we talked about with Volpe. He's so unusual because he doesn't. He can speed up to catch up to that fastball and then slow back down for a big curveball or a change or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a guy who I think finally figured out in Luis Medina. I'm excited to watch him the rest of the year and see if he can help this team for the stretch run.
Yeah.
Talking about another guy who kind of figures some stuff out. And this kind of gets into that conversation of what's going to happen at catcher. So Anthony Seigler, it's a really interesting guy. 2018 first rounder out of high school, which you don't see a lot of high school catchers anymore.
Right.
But he'd only played 95 games going into this season. And listen to this dude was a walking mash unit. Okay. 2018 had a hamstring issue and a concussion. 2019, he broke his left knee. I didn't know you could break the knee.
Yeah, you can.
Like the kneecap, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the patella, yeah. Oof.
Okay, there you go. Lost all of 2020 to the pandemic, had a quad issue in 2021. So had played 95 games in his career going into this year. 56 games between single A and high A, 253, 430 on base,
Wow.
433 slugging percentage, 7 home runs, 14 stolen bases by a catcher, 55 walks to 45 strikeouts. So he's always been one of the better defensive catchers in the system, but I like the fact that he walks more than he strikes out. He's walking just about once a game there. And then watching some of the stats, he's picked up some strength during all of his rehabs. I guess he's just so used to rehabbing now. He can rehab quickly.
Right.
But ground ball rate's down to 18%, and the line drive rate's up to about 35%. So I think that if this holds, if this is actually who he is, it creates a really interesting conversation for the offseason, because I've noticed the Yankees tend to only carry two catchers on the 40-man roster. And this offseason, you have Austin Wells in Double-A with a decision to be made, Josh Bro in Triple-A with a decision to be made, a Rule 5 decision, and then you have Anthony Seigler with a decision to be made. And I kind of think Seigler might be the best actual catcher of the three if we assume Austin Wells has to move to first.
Right.
And so, what happens? It's just a really interesting kind of Yankees fans can think about an off day. Hey, which of these catchers do we keep? How does it work? Because Wells is probably going to play first. So who's our catcher?
Right.
Interesting little conversation to have. But I like what I've seen from him finally, that he's finally been healthy.
Now, speaking of Wells, the day that the show goes up, July 12th, is Austin Wells' birthday.
Happy birthday, Austin Wells. I'm sorry on your birthday I said you couldn't play catcher.
Yeah. The reason I know this is I looked him up because they were talking about him earlier in the season. And he was born on the day I started my job at NBC, July 12th, 1999.
What a flex.
So I will always remember Austin Wells' birthday. So happy birthday, Austin.
Happy birthday, Austin Wells.
So we spoke about Dominguez, but you had more to say about Dominguez.
I have more to say about Dominguez. You want to give our sponsor their ad, and then I'm going to go have my big Jasson Dominguez thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Before we talk about Jasson Dominguez and why Lindsay may be down on Jasson Dominguez.
There's no may here.
Okay. Well, I was trying to be nice.
I know.
This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and then wait for the person behind the counter to order the parts on their computer, but choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need, from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So, why are you down on Jasson Dominguez?
Okay, so first, it's not just me.
Right.
So MLB Pipeline has him at number 3 in the system. Baseball America has him at 8, with the highest of the 4 risk levels that they can have. I've got him a little farther down towards there as well. So, full context, in MLB Pipeline's top 100, he's number 40. I have him a little bit lower. Okay, so one, and this is kind of our fault, right? He came out with incredibly unrealistic expectations. If you remember some of the things that were said when he was signed, there was a combination. He was some sort of combination of Mike Trout and Mickey Mantle. I mean, there was absurd names being thrown out to compare him to.
Yeah.
And it did a little bit of a disservice to him, I think.
Sure.
Because you should not have put those expectations on him. And I say you, it's the prospect apparatus. It was people like me. It wasn't me, but people like me.
Yes.
But he's repeating low A this year. So he's batting .262, .371, .438 over 72 games, 9 home runs, 17 stolen bases. Here's some of the issues that I have. So one, and this has been kind of talked about a lot. Physically, the physical development during the pandemic kind of went a little awry. He had what was considered plus speed, one of the higher ratings we can give to speed. That's kind of down to average to above average because he added a lot of size. He's listed at 5'10", 210. I think that might be a little bit under where he actually is. And here's, it's not a big deal that you got big. That's fine. But his plate discipline hasn't gotten any better at all from last year to this year. So, 262 batting average this year. Last year, 258, within a margin of error. On base percentage, 371 to 346. It got a little bit better. Slugging percentage, 438, 398. Got a little bit better. 20 or 30 points in on base and slugging. He's repeating single A, and he's within a measurement variance of the exact same player.
Right.
And it's when you watch him play, it's the plate discipline, and then it's the effort. It's the mental side of it. I came on this show back in January, and I thought that being in Tampa with Rachel Balkovec, he had a relationship with her from not that kind of relationship. He had a previous working relationship with her from the academy in the Dominican. I thought that was going to be a good influence on him. I don't know. Like, at this point, it's on him. It's not a physical issue, although he has slowed down a bit. His arm isn't as strong as it was when he was first signed. He's gone from a plus arm to probably average to above average. I'm probably going to have to move him to a corner now, and rather than leaving him in center because his speed's getting lower and his arm strength's come back a bit. But it's the effort. And I talk to scouts, I talk to prospect evaluators, and people say, I mean, they're like, he just seems kind of apathetic. Like, I think it's the first time he's struggled in baseball, and probably in his entire life.
Right.
But I mean, that's a common thing, and that happens to every prospect. But he doesn't seem to be making the adjustments, and he's not having competitive at bats. And there's still polish here. There's still tools. You can still see that he's a good baseball player. He's just not necessarily showing all of that externally. I think if you're making a trade deadline deal, we've talked about needing a reliever, maybe an outfielder or a starting pitcher or something. I think that if you're smart, Jasson Dominguez is the centerpiece of the deal. While he has some value, because internal evaluators are harsher on him than external evaluators. And part of that's just sample size. You don't see a ton of him. So if you see a bad outing or two as an external evaluator, you assume you just caught him on a bad day. That's kind of human nature. Internally, guys I've spoken to inside the organization and inside the player development department say it's the same thing every day. Like they see this regularly. So if you're going to make a deal for a reliever, you're going to make a deal for an outfielder or something like that, include him in the package. Use him while his value is so high. MLB has him as the 40th best prospect in baseball. I think that's about at least 60 spots too high. But use him while he has value before he gives everybody a chance to see what I'm afraid he may ultimately end up being. And it's just, I mean, it's like I said, it's kind of all on him right now. I mean, it's an effort thing at this point, and it's a discipline thing as far as physical conditioning and the amount of effort you're giving on a ball field.
Do you think his age plays into this? Because he's still pretty young. I mean, he's only 19, but
yeah, he was born in 2003. I mean, he was very young for. Like he was one of only a handful of 18-year-olds in full season ball last year. So I mean, he is young for the level. I'll give him that. He's only 19 now. This is his second futures game, despite being 19 years old. Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment. But that's part of it. He's a young man who is in probably the first prolonged slump of his baseball career since he was a kid. But I'm not seeing the mental resilience to fight back out of that like a lot of players show. And I don't know, some guys, they need something to shock their system. It may be a trade, it may be getting benched, but oftentimes you hear the stories about a guy that needed to change of scenery or a guy who needed a wake-up call.
Right.
Jasson Dominguez needs a wake-up call, and I'm not sure at what point he gets it, but I think if you want to give him the wake-up call and you don't want to have to worry about making it work, he could be a trade piece in August.
Interesting. Quickly, before we have to end the show, draft preview, just...
Yes. Picking 25th, so back into the first round. There's supposed to be a big run of like college outfielders and college bats back there. I've seen a lot of people saying outfielder Spencer Jones of Vanderbilt at the first round. I think that's kind of a lazy pick because he's a 6'7" outfielder. So you're like, oh, well, they have the 6'7" outfielder. Give him they're completely different players.
Right.
But I do think a Dylan Beavers from Cal, a Brock Jones from Stanford, Jacob Melton from Oregon State, any one of those outfielders would be a good pick in the back half of the first round. And I actually like Spencer Jones, maybe with that second pick at 61, going with either like a prep bat, like a first baseman Xavier Isaac or something, or Spencer Jones with the 61st pick, the second pick, doing that. But the first pick, I like a college bat simply because the way the board shakes out. I don't think there's going to be a lot of prep talent there in the first round.
Yeah.
And just there's not a lot of college pitchers this year.
I'm just amazed that there are so many guys coming up playing baseball who are just huge. This past week the Yankees played the Pirates, and you had O'Neal Cruz right next to Aaron Judge, and it was the first time that he made Aaron Judge look like normal, because they were standing next to each other at the same exact height, and it was just really, where are all these guys coming from? I joked about this last year. I said it's like they're grown in labs. Like, all these guys are monstrous. I wish Phil Rizzuto was alive to see these giants playing the infield, because Phil Rizzuto was lucky to be like 5'5", 5'6", and if he saw all these guys who are like 6'7", 6'8" walking around, he'd be like, wow, this is. Oh, he would say, "Holy cow," because he just would not believe it.
Yeah, I've actually heard from a couple people that like Aaron Judge is one of those players, because he is so tall and is still able to play at a high level, that has made some folks think, oh, well, I don't have to switch to like basketball or something. I can play baseball despite being a massively tall human being, because Aaron Judge is doing it. So it's nice to know that your MVP favorite right now is helping grow the game of baseball.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear.
Yeah. Because 35, 40 years ago, Cal Ripken Jr. comes up, and 6'4" for a shortstop was big back then.
Yeah,
and
people
then
are losing their minds about it.
Yeah, then you had A-Rod, Nomar, Jeter. They were all 6'3", 6'2", 6'3" shortstops, which was a big deal.
We can say Nomar on this pod?
Sure.
I didn't think we were allowed to say his name. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I could say it. That's fine. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
I am proud to say that I recognized every name that you mentioned, because I'm paying attention more to prospects. We've spoken about this before, but I've had my heart broken by prospects in the past, because I'm an old Yankee fan. I mean, I remember the Brian Taylor debacle. So yeah, I've been around a long time watching all these guys, and it's nice to have names that you can look at and be like, oh, yeah, okay, maybe they could contribute somewhat soon, or help us get guys who will help the team now. And I think what you said about Dominguez is interesting, and we'll see how everyone reacts to that.
I mean, that's my opinion. Thankfully I'm not in the front office, but if I was, due to be gone tomorrow. Right.
Right. Because it's funny, last week, Ethan Smith of Locked On Pirates and I did a crossover before the two-game series. And he had asked me if he thought the Yankees would include Volpe in a trade for Brian Reynolds. And I was like, no. No. They didn't hang on to Volpe and only trade for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa just to trade him to the Pirates for Brian. Yeah. That's not happening. No.
Yeah. They already shipped out a shortstop prospect when they shipped out Duran and Smith, and you can only get rid of so many shortstop prospects before you have to start keeping them. And I think they kept the right two. I think these guys will be a good pair together. But again, Jasson Dominguez can be on paper, a very attractive headliner piece in a big trade deal because of the name, the MLB pipeline rankings, and the pre-existing perception of him before the pandemic and before some of the physical changes. So maybe do that. If my listeners want to keep up with the best team in baseball, the Yankees, Stacey, how can they go about doing that?
You can watch and listen to Locked On Yankees. You can follow me on Twitter at StaceGots, StaceGots, or Locked On Yankees, all one word, because we made it easy for you. And that's where you can find me. And I try to be one of those Yankee fans who doesn't look at things through pinstriped glasses, and I don't yell a lot either. So I'm kind of a rare breed in that sense. So
I also don't yell, although I did say on the pod yesterday that one prospect was a dick. So That happens from time to time, but he had it coming. That's a direct quote from another player, so that's why I can say that. If Yankees fans want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. The show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You should go subscribe to the YouTube page,
Yes.
Locked On MLB Prospects, because one, really close to 1,000, but then
Yes,
two,
get him to 1,000.
really close. But then two, we're going live on Sunday night for the first round of the MLB Draft. So we're going to have a live kind of first round recap show. It'll be about 45 minutes or so. And then we're going to have daily recaps for days 2 and 3 of the draft. We're going to go through all the teams, and I'm sure I'll probably spend an entire episode at some point in time next week talking about the AL East and how they did in their drafts and kind of my way too early grades of their drafts. So Crosby Baseball for me, the show's at Locked On Farm. It's on YouTube wherever you get, and wherever you get your podcasts as Locked On MLB Prospects.